Yes, Adrian, I am in the middle of sequel September at the moment, in which I'm focusing mostly on sequels to series that I have to finish, that I've been putting off for quite some time in most cases. In honor of sequel September, I thought that I'd bring you a video in which I tell you all of my favorite sequels. There are a lot of sequels that I've read that I really love, but these ones in particular are sequels that I enjoyed more than the first book, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes you have books that either you have like this second book syndrome or they slowly digress. These are books that I think just got better and better as they went along. A lot of them are second books that I enjoyed more than the first book. So let's just jump right in. The first one of these is the third book to a series, and that is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This is the third and final book to the Shades of Magic trilogy. I can't tell you much about this book as with all these other series, but I will tell you a little bit about each of the first books. The first book, A Darker Shade of Magic, follows two characters. It follows Lila, who is a cross-dressing thief, and it follows Kel, who is a blood magic Antari. With Kel's blood magic, he has the ability to travel between parallel Londons. You have 4 parallel Londons. You have Red London, White London, Grey London, and Black London, which is no more. Kel also happens to be a smuggler because he's not really happy with everything that's going on in his life, and smuggling is the one thing that he can control. So he smuggles things from various Londons, which is not allowed. One day, he accidentally smuggles something that puts pretty much everything in danger. This is when he meets Lila, and together they have to save the universe, more or less. That's a little bit dramatic, but you get the drift. I liked Darker Shade of Magic. It wasn't my favorite book, but I liked it enough to want to go on with this series. A Gathering of Shadows convinced me that I actually did like the series, and A Conjuring of Light was action-packed from start to finish. This is a huge book, and I finished it in less than a week. I could not put it down. Another final book to a series that I absolutely loved, that I put off reading for forever and finally did at the beginning of this year, was Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the 4th book to the Lunar Chronicles series, and the Lunar Chronicles are sort of sci-fi fairy tale retellings. There are 4 in the series: Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter. Cinder is a retelling of Cinderella, Scarlet, Red Riding Hood, Cress, Rapunzel, and Winter, Snow White. And when I went into these, I went into them sort of skeptically. Number 1, because I don't really like sci-fi. Number 2, because they're fairy tales, and I sort of figured I would know how the stories end. But guys, I was so wrong. These stories aren't really separate from each other. They sort of intertwine, and the character sets just keep building and building and building as they go on with the series. This is another one that, because of its length, this book is well over 850 pages. Because of its length, I put it off for over a year, and when I finally picked it up, I flew through it. This is my favorite book. I like Cinder. I like Scarlet and Cress a little bit. I loved Winter. If you're like me and you're not a huge fan of sci-fi, I would still recommend these series because they read so quickly and they're so interesting. Cinder is, like I said, the story of Cinderella, and it follows a girl named Cinder who is a cyborg, and who doesn't want to read a cyborg Cinderella story? Because that's just cool. It wouldn't be a favorite sequel video if I didn't mention one of my favorite series. So my favorite sequel in the Outlander series was Voyager by Diana Gabaldon. I know I mentioned this in all of my videos. A lot of you are not a fan of Outlander. I am. We each read our own sets of books, but this one was my favorite because it, again, was action-packed all the way through. There was this huge moment halfway through the book that I was just waiting for it to happen, and when it did, I cheered. When things happened that I didn't see coming, that made me angry, I actually threw my book, which is why this book is a little bit damaged, because I got so mad. I loved this book. I do want to mention quickly though that while Voyager, which is book 3 in the series, was my favorite book, season 3 of the show Outlander was really good, but it wasn't my favorite. I don't know, maybe because I knew everything that happened, so I wasn't like in that sense of like despair, suspense, shock, awe that I had with the book. I love season 3 of Outlander, don't get me wrong, but I like the book a whole lot better. But anyway, if you read Outlander and you read Dragonfly and Amber and you're on the fence if you should continue on with the series or not, I would recommend giving Voyager a go because I really enjoyed it. Next up, we've got book 2 to the Mistborn series, The Well of Ascension. This book was phenomenal. I love the first book, Mistborn, because it helped set up this world. The Well of Ascension took a spin that I didn't see coming, that I absolutely loved. Mistborn is a realm where magic is controlled by consuming metals, which I thought I wouldn't like, but I actually really did. And it follows a cast of characters who work together to bring down the final empire. Specifically a girl named Vin, who finds out that she also has magical abilities. She had no idea up until this point that she did. She works together with these band of characters and they work to take down this final empire. It also follows a past hero that was told of in legends who failed in bringing down the final empire and doomed and gloomed the whole world. And so it's great. It's complicated. It's definitely a high fantasy, but really worth the effort. The last two books are the second book to trilogies that I thought were fantastic, that blew the first and the third book way out of the water. First up being Gemini by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This is the second book to the Illuminae files. For those of you who don't know, the Illuminae files it's like told through dossiers with chat logs and emails and all kinds of surveillance footage. It's really good. The first book, Illuminae, sets up the story where this planet, Carenza 4, is illegally destroyed, and so we're following these refugees through this whole space saga, and it's so action-packed. The second book, Gemini, follows a different set of characters, and a lot of people didn't like Gemini quite as much as Illuminae. I loved it. I loved Gemini's characters more than I loved the Illuminae characters, which really surprised me. But what I loved about this book is that it has like this tiny dose of horror, and I don't like horror books, but this book was enough to totally creep me out without giving me too many nightmares and making me completely paranoid of space monsters. It was so good. So good. This was my favorite book of the year in my mid-year top 10, and I think it still might be my favorite book of the year. And lastly is a book that I absolutely loved the second book to, with the first book and the third book I wasn't blown away by, and that's A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. A Court of Thorns and Roses I liked well enough to continue on with the series. Sort of like I felt with Darker Shade of Magic. Like I like it enough, I'll continue to see where it goes. A Court of Mist and Fury blew me away. One of the best fae books I have ever read. And then we go to the third book, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and because this book was so good, A Court of Wings and Ruin, it just wasn't living up to that expectation, so it didn't do quite as well. A Court of Thorns and Roses follows a girl named Feyre, and Feyre is sort of the only one that's really fighting for her family. Her father has had some pretty bad tragedies. Her sisters are sort of unhelpful, so she's hunting for her family to bring them home food when she shoots a wolf who accidentally happens to be a fairy, and so she is met by this fairy named Tamlin, who takes her into fairy as punishment for the death of his fellow comrade. A Court of Mist and Fury takes everything that you know about A Court of Thorns and Roses and turns it on its head and does things that you don't expect, but so good. So good. So those are all the sequels that I wanted to talk to you about in this video. There are more sequels that I definitely enjoyed, but these are the ones that jumped out at me, especially when we're talking about sequels that I enjoyed better than the first book. And if you have not read any of these series, I would definitely recommend them. They were all phenomenal. Obviously, I'm sure you know by my rave reviews. Let me know down below what your favorite sequel is so I can go check out some more series. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you have not yet, I'd love for you to subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.